Okay, I would like to call the December 17th regular school board meeting of ISD 622 to order. First on the agenda is the Pledge of Allegiance. Okay, next we need an approval of the agenda. Can I get a motion and a second to approve the agenda?
So moved.
Moved by Livingston, second by Hunt. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
And all opposed say nay. Okay, we have an approved agenda. Next we have public comment, and we have 3 individuals who have signed up for public comment. The public comment is an opportunity for the public to comment on items. Speakers shall complete a registration card, state their name and address, and will have between 2 and 4 minutes, depending on the number of speakers, to speak on a topic. The public comment section of the meeting shall last no longer than 30 minutes. And just a reminder that the board doesn't respond during public comment. The first person we have is Kathy Degurski. So can you state your name and address? Thanks.
My name is Kathy DeGiusti. My address is 6124 Lauren Drive, Minneapolis, Minnesota. Okay, so I'm just going to read the letter that I wrote. Hi, my name is Kathy DeGiusti, and I am a multiple needs nurse at Oakdale Elementary School. I am currently in charge of 30 children with whom are medically fragile. I currently have 10 children who are epileptic. Some have seizures almost daily. They require constant monitoring during their time at school. Over half of the kids are in wheelchairs. I currently have 10 students who are tube fed, who also require constant monitoring during their time at school. Almost half of the students are fed at school, and almost all of them require multiple water flushes to keep their tubes open and in working order. Currently, I have a very medically fragile child who receives nebulizer treatments 3 times a day, as well as having his gastric tube flushed a total of 6 times per day. This student also requires constant suctioning to keep his airway open. He receives oxygen as needed. I will be starting neb treatments on another student when he comes back from winter break. He also has an order for PRN suctioning to keep his airway open. I also have children who receive scheduled medication treatment and as needed medication throughout the day. I am also responsible for the daily documentation of the medications and treatments and all the other paperwork in between. I rarely get a lunch break, and if I do, it is always interrupted by staff due to some kind of problem with one of the kids. It is so easy to be told to take a lunch, but who is going to watch over the kids? The other nurse in the building is just as busy with her own kids, and it never fails. Something always happens during that time. I do not complain about this. It is just the way it is. That does not stop the district from docking me a half an hour of pay per day. Now we are into the respiratory influenza season, so unfortunately there are always attempts to be taken and a parent to call. It saddens me to think the school district of 622 does not think the nursing staff deserves a raise each year. We all work very hard at taking care of the students. We care about their well-being in all aspects of their life. Next year we'll be getting 5+ incoming kindergartners, so that will make it 35 kids. The number continues to keep growing. In closing, I would like to say the days of school nurses taking a temperature or putting a bandage on a hurt child are definitely over. We live in a time where all children should be able to go to school and to learn and socialize as best as they can with their peers. We need to change with the times too. I am just as busy now working as when I worked in the hospital. It's funny, I'm responsible to save lives, and yet a garbage collector makes more money than me. I just want to leave you all with one last thought. I remember a few years back when they put out this commercial with an elderly woman having to decide if she was going to buy her medicine or buy groceries. Very sad but true, we are already there. If the cost of insurance continues to keep rising, the average person will not be able to afford it. Then what? I take care of kids all day long. Who's going to take care of the nurses' kids? Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Kathy. Next for public comment, we have Angie Polos. And Angie, will you state your name and address?
Hi, I'm Angie Polis, 4091 Geneva Avenue North in Oakdale. I work here at the District Ed Center in Community Ed. I'm representing the clerical union today. I'm on the contract negotiation team this year. When we received the district's offer for increases on wages and insurance, I calculated the amounts that would be needed of wage increases to cover the insurance that went up on July 1st, using the district's proposal for their increase as well. And hearing that it also may go up another 10% or more this year, I calculated those costs and what they would need to be as well. I then made charts of the wage increases that the district proposed of 2%. And I didn't include grade 1 because we don't have anyone in there. But I did include grade 7, in which there's only one person, so that could skew the numbers. All of the 2% would be a wage cut for pretty much everybody. So I created wage scales using 25-cent increments from there on up. A 2.75% increase would be required just to cover the costs on average. So there would still be half of our people getting a wage cut in relation to the insurance increases. And while a 2% increase may cover those costs for some units, they don't cover it for ours. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Angie. And the last one is Bobby Casper, President St. Paul. Oh, sorry, I didn't need to read that. Will you state your name and your address, please?
Hi, I'm Bobby Casper, President of the St. Paul Regional Labor Federation. My address is 353 West 7th Street. Hi, I'm Bobby Casper, President of the St. Paul Regional Labor Federation. How you doing tonight? Good? Appreciate that. The school district negotiating team of 622 North St. Paul, Maplewood, Oakdale has told our team they would not improve their contract offer. They told us the school board will not put more money on the table to improve the offer on wages and health care. This is why we're all here tonight, to urge the school board to put the money on the table for the contract. You know, I remember a lot of you during, election time. I remember is when you all want to get screened. And we all we're like an elephant. We have short memories and long memories. And we remember what we need to do. And this is not a big ask. This is not. This is over health care that needs to be paid and give these people some type of equitable pay raises. If you're going to attract people to do these jobs and you're going to just continue to cut, how are you supposed to keep qualified people? The district is only offering an increase of contribution toward the health care as premiums of only 3% as the 10% hike in those premiums, which inadvertently, it's a pay cut. It's a pay cut. Is this the business we're in? Under the contract, EA nurses contract, if you were hired after 1990, which is particularly everyone in the unit in the district, does not contribute a penny toward their family health care coverage. We have nurses taking care of kids in the schools, and the district is doing nothing to help take care of the nurses' kids' health care coverage. This is an outrageous and unfair offer. If you want to dig your heels in, we will too. You know, we're amongst friends here tonight. I'm not threatening anybody. I'm just advocating, get back to the table and get this thing done. It's time for the school board to put a fair offer on the table. Some of your school board members are labor endorsed by us. We represent approximately 60,000 union members in this area. 156 separate labor unions. This is a quality of life state and a quality of life way we live. It's a travesty that these people have to go through this and take these cuts, and especially the conditions they go through in these schools. So I advocate you tonight, I plead in a nice way, especially during the holidays. I'm not asking you to play Santa Claus. I'm not. I'm asking you to be fair and look at this stuff. We're all good people here. Please get it done. Thank you for having me tonight.
Okay, thank you. That's the last public comment. The next item on the agenda is the consent agenda. So the consent agenda consists of routine items that are acted on in a single consolidated motion without board discussion. Board members have the option of pulling items off the consent agenda if they wish to discuss them or consider them individually. So for the consent agenda, we have A, minutes of the November 19th, 2019 business meeting. B, minutes of the November 19th, 2019 closed session. C, minutes of the December 3rd, 2019 work study session. D, routine personnel. And E, disbursements. So I need a motion and a second.
Second.
Moved by Ogier, second by Livingston. All in favor say aye. Aye. And all opposed say nay. Okay, the consent agenda is approved. And next on our agenda, we have reports, and the first reports are our school board reps. So, Manny or Evan? Okay, so Manny Alvarez from North St. Paul High School. Do you want to wait just a second? Manny, do you want to wait just a second for just the commotion to die down? I think they're all going to move now, and so maybe after they move.
As we approach the winter break, North students have had many opportunities to give back to their community. During homeroom time, stockings have been passed around for donations. These donations will go to the National Honor Society to help them make blankets for people in need. Another opportunity that's opened up is called Polar Buddies, which have started meeting after school recently. It's where students at North can assist students with special needs and tasks in school and just help them out in certain ways. Another way North upperclassmen have started to give back is that they have volunteered to become tutors for underclassmen, which need help, and this will happen after lunch and during lunch periods. A program called Genesis Works has started presenting their opportunity to help students gain like corporate internships and learn valuable skills for the workplace. Has started to present during some junior classes and also senior classes to present their opportunity to apply. Lastly, North St. Paul recently played the Minnehaha boys basketball team, and although North lost, all-conference player Shahid Mohammed scored 37 points for North, which led him to receive attention from large national platforms such as Overtime and Bleacher Report. Thank you.
Was he the one who got dunked on? No. So the Tartan Plaid Press is back running again after a 6-year hiatus. It's a student-run newspaper where members of the club and the journalism classes can submit their articles. Students can also comment on any articles and contact advisors if they want to submit something independently. There's also a creative writing club starting up, kind of in the same vein, where students can submit either anonymous or credited pieces. The Tartan BPA brought holiday cards around to all lunches and got over 100 cards filled with signatures for the Red Cross Holidays for Heroes project, which essentially will provide those cards and other support for veterans and soldiers who are either overseas or in the hospital over the holiday break. The Tartan Student Council is also quite busy in December. 2 Saturdays ago, Tartan Student Council participated in the Holiday Helping Hands project. They helped wrap and deliver gifts for less fortunate families. They also organized the annual semi-formal dance, which was great time for many of the students that were in attendance. And then finally, Tartan Choir recently held their winter concert, singing a mix of winter and holiday staples, and some new songs as well. Nordic ski athletes have continuously placed in high positions at the meet so far this season. And Tartan boys basketball has had some big wins against schools like Richfield and Elk River.
Great, thanks a lot, you guys. Nancy?
I also, snow. I also heard that the Knowledge Bowl team is doing really well, and they're coming for a meet at Tartan on Friday. Is that?
Yeah, we're actually hosting a meet at Tartan on
Okay.
Friday. We're
Are
gonna
you
be-
on that?
Yeah.
Oh, you are. Oh, see, you were being modest.
Yeah.
Okay, okay.
We're facing some of the schools that were in the state competition next year. So although it's not a meet that's going to affect our placing at sections or regions, it'll be a good test to see if we can, hopefully make it to state again this year. Thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah, Evan, where can I get a copy of the tartan paper? Is that online or is it physical?
Yeah, it's online. So you can go to plaidpress.org and you'll be able to read everything that's submitted on there. Forgot to mention that. Thank you.
All right, thanks again, you guys. Okay, next on the agenda, we have Superintendent Troy Miller and Sean Brolin from Eagle Point.
Yeah, it's my pleasure to introduce to you Principal of Eagle Point, Sean Bromlin. He's going to give us some updates on the great things happening at Eagle Point. So welcome, Sean.
All right, Chair Yenner, Board, Superintendent Osorio, thanks for having me. It's really exciting to be able to talk a little bit about what's happening at Eagle Point. We have a really wonderful community. At Eagle Point this year, our kind of our driving motto has been helping every student achieve every day with integrity. The mission and vision of Eagle Point is that students at Eagle Point Elementary School succeed and thrive due to a unique combination of support from parents, as well as the hard work and dedicated and professional staff. It is in this atmosphere of mutual respect and commitment to success that Eagle Point students excel, both academically and emotionally. This year at Eagle Point, we really are looking at academics, opportunities, and community involvement. So as we kind of go through this presentation, we're going to be focusing in on those three areas. Our first and primary focus at Eagle Point is learning and academic and social needs. We really want to have a focus on strong academics. We believe that at Eagle Point, our primary job is to make sure that all of our students are getting what they need, both on the high end and those students who need support as well. We've really been lucky in the sense that we have been intentionally working towards having success with our MCA scores. So as you can kind of see here, again, we have had about 82% proficiency in math, 67% proficiency in reading, and 63% proficiency in science. Over the last 9 years as I've been principal there, our academics has continued to go up, and we've continued to be leading the way within our district. We also, though, want to not only have academics be a priority, but we also want it to be a safe and caring environment as well. So we do use a lot of different programs like Welcoming Schools and Oveus to try to create that environment that we want. This past few years, we've also tried to really incorporate culturally and linguistically responsive teaching. We have a few teachers right now who are kind of leading the way on that in our building and using their own classrooms as open classrooms for other teachers to come and learn from. We have really targeted interventions. Our staff have dedicated time every day working with all of our students to make sure that every student is getting what that they need. And then also, we have a very strong instructional coach at Eagle Point. Our coach, Renee Kaiser, she has helped kind of develop a lot of the plans that we are using to kind of move our staff along. An example of just some ways that we're trying to get students involved with their education is this giant Minnesota map. It's been used around the district, but we wanted to show this picture because it's that interactive learning that kids are using all the time. So here you can see both third grade and first grade using the same interactive map to kind of learn about our state. A second thing that we really want to do is provide opportunities for our students. Oftentimes, we want the schools to be a way that students can experience the world in other ways. So the past year, we've also had artists in residence for every single one of our students. Our 5th grade classes continue to use Deep Portage as a learning opportunity. Every year, we have an annual culture fair, which brings our community together. And this past year, we took the whole school to the Saints game. So when we talk about artists in residence, it really is about giving every student a chance to experience art. So we had artists in residence for each of the grade levels come in, and in this picture you can see our CID students as well as our 4th grade classes creating puppets. And then this is some pictures from our 5th grade Deep Portage Environmental Learning Camp this year. So you can see kids experiencing both the outdoors but also learning teamwork. And then in the spring, we did have the opportunity to take our school, the whole school, to the Saints game. And that really is a challenge. But the kids, there's so many kids who've never experienced even going to a professional sporting event. This opportunity is something that they very much appreciate and cherish. Finally, one of the other things that we're very proud of is our culture fair. Every year we have a very dynamic culture fair. We have about 800 families, family members who come and support that, as well as almost all of our staff are there as well. A third area that we're really proud of is our community involvement. We have an active parent group. Oftentimes there are 30 people showing up to our parent group meetings. We have family night outs. We have lifelong volunteers within our schools, and we also use a grandparent program. So as you take a look at this picture, the top corner, Sue Jetsky was a teacher at Eagle Point for many years, and she continues even this year to come back and volunteer 1 day a week. The Hafners, which are pictured in the bigger picture there, they've never had kids in our school, but they continue to come back every year and volunteer on a weekly basis. And Mr. Renstrom, who's in the bottom corner, he had kids graduate this past year from high school, and he still comes back and volunteers at Eagle Point on a regular basis. We're also really proud of our parent group. Our parent group is a very dynamic group. Over the last 3 years, they've raised over $100,000 on our readathon to help support our students. This year, they raised $35,000. I don't know if you had a chance to go on to Facebook Live last week, but you may have seen me on the roof. You may have seen Dr. Miller up there reading a story about an old lady who swallowed some snow. I'm not going to make any more jokes about that. But anyways, our parent group just gives so much back to our students on a regular basis. And then finally, just kind of ended, here's a class of our kindergartners who are helping support the readathon this year. And our theme was around superheroes, so you can see that these are Mrs. DeRush's students who are super readers.
Any questions for Sean? Or?
Thank you. Nancy?
I was just wondering, are there any former Eagle Point students here? Any? Ah, there's a few. Okay. All right. All right. Thank you for the report, and I appreciate it so much. I'm so impressed, especially with the work of closing the achievement gap with the kindergartners. Can you comment on that, Sean, or how that happened, how that came about?
You know, it's really through the intentional work of looking at data. Our instructional coach works closely with all the teams. We look at where the gaps are, and then we try to figure out different ways of trying to get support in where it's needed. On a regular basis, though, if you walk down our hallways, you'll see the hallways packed with volunteers working one-on-one with students. In addition, one of the things that we want to do is also be modeling that from the top as well. So every day, at least 3 different grade levels, I'm in classrooms working with interventions as well, because we need to be utilizing all of our resources that we can. So it really is a team effort, but it is intentionally about looking at the data, figuring out where the gaps are, push in and support where we need. But in that same process, we also really want to be intentional about the students who are on the high end and how do we kind of provide opportunities for them as well. And it's, again, looking at the data and having those intentional plans.
Thank you, Sean. Can you just talk a little bit about any of the anticipation or excitement that your staff is feeling about the potential new building? And I know it's a ways away, but there's got to be conversations and community conversations, and I'm sure you've been part of that. Can you share where things are at?
There's a ton of excitement out there for the new building. I mean, honestly, we feel, all of us at Eagle Point feel privileged to work at the place that we are right now. It's a great community. However, even with that, I think that the excitement is that we see opportunity to grow. We see opportunities to be working with more families, the opportunities to be working with more staff, the opportunities to build our community even broader. The parent group is a group that is very, very excited. They support this new building. They support the mission and vision of the district and of Eagle Point specifically. And they want to see us continue to do great work with all students. And so that the building is great. It's going to be beautiful, but it's what's going to be happening inside there that the families are really excited about, and continuing that work of building that community.
Okay, thanks again, Sean.
Thank you.
Okay, next on the agenda, we have Superintendent Christine Tucci-Osorio with facilities update.
Thank you, Chair Yenner, directors of the board. My presentation this evening is very short. I have one slide for you. We've had a lot of conversations lately about facilities, many updates every single month. Tonight, I just want to share a reminder with you and our viewing public that we have two amazing events coming up, two ribbon cutting ceremonies ahead of us. As you know, we've had two buildings already under construction and approaching final completion dates. And I want to invite everyone to join us. We're going to have open houses at Castle and Richardson in January. Castle Elementary is going to be held from 4:30 to 6 o'clock on January 15th. And Richardson will be from 4:30 to 6 o'clock on January 29th. These are opportunities for the general public to come and see those buildings. We'll be doing a little presentation, a walkthrough. People can have a chance to come and see what the buildings look like. And we're very excited to make sure that maybe people who used to attend those schools years ago, neighbors of the schools, people who live across the street, we want to make sure we're working hard to get the word out to everybody we can so that people really come and take a tour, walk around. If somebody had a connection to that building many years ago, they're going to want to see the changes. I think it's going to be really fun for people, especially if they're people who've ever had any experiences in these buildings before. So that's the big announcement for this evening. I want to remind everyone that we are also working on virtual tours so that we will have those available on the web by the end of January as well. And we want to make those available not only for people who are unable to get to the buildings that evening or walk about, but also people who may live out of state and want to have a connection to what's happening back at home, and keep that available as well. So we're looking forward to sharing the good news of these first two projects that are going to be unveiled. That's all I have for a facilities update tonight.
I was just noticing that, Christine, that you're the keynote speaker at the State of the City of Maplewood event. Did you know that?
Yes, I did know that. Thank you.
And what is I was just curious, what is the topic? Is it going to be facilities or?
Yeah, I'll be doing a general overview of facilities updates because I think everybody really wants to hear about that. But I'm also going to talk about our academic programming and some changes that are coming in the district. I'm going to talk about our career pathways and talking about our work in that area, as well as our work towards building a really robust high school catalog with some online learning blended options as well. Just kind of an overview of the whole district. But a very big piece will be about facilities as well.
Okay. Well, thank you for I'm sure it's a volunteer.
Well, I was asked, and I was honored to have been asked.
Yeah. Well, thank you for doing that. Yeah. Also, one other thing, the North High hosted the show choir's presentation to the Rotarians last Friday, and it was really amazing. They're just this new choir director at North is just excellent. Well, not that it hasn't been in the past, but this is really over the top. The performance was really terrific. So, and I know you were there, so
Yeah.
thanks for doing that.
Okay, any other questions or comments? Nope. Okay, next on the agenda, we have the Business Office 2019 Payable 2020 Tax Levy and Randy Anderson.
Chair Yenner, members of the board, and Superintendent Tucci Osorio. It's that time of year again where we're having our what was formerly called the Truth in Taxation presentation. After the presentation, we'll have anyone who wants to speak publicly. And later on in the presentation during the action items, we'll take action on this final levy. So remember, last September, you did certify a proposed levy. We went through it, et cetera, at a work session, and tonight that levy has not changed by much, maybe just like $1,000, just due to some computation types of things. But we are required by law to do a Truth in Taxation meeting where we explain our 2019-2020 budget and then talk about the final certified levy presentation, and then the district needs to allow public to speak. And again, the district can approve the levy at the same meeting, and we'll be looking for that action later on in the meeting. So first of all, I'd like to talk a little bit about the, that should say 2019-2020 revenue, all budgets. Just a couple of things here. You're going to see that. Oh no, yeah, that's what it should say. It should say 2018-2019 revenue all funds. At first, I thought we had the wrong presentation here, but you can see we have 9 funds here. The largest is the general fund. You're noticing here that the general fund is going down by about $3.4 million. What's happened here is that some of the funds that were the long-term facilities maintenance funds that were normally budgeted in the general fund, the pay-as-you-go funds, because our projects are now over $2 million, we're required, and we've elected to expense those pay-as-you-go funds out of Fund 6 since we're doing our facilities planning. So that's why the revenues have significantly dropped below what they were last year, and that's due to that transfer of funds to the Fund 6. So you can kind of see here as we look down the funds, the construction funds, the revenues for last year compared to this year. Now keep in mind that last year we had the non-voter approved bonds that we sold for the Castle and Richardson project. So that's where you see the $61 million. Right now in the 2019-2020 budget, we only have revenue of about $500,000 for interest revenue on those funds. But we will be doing a revised budget to recognize the bonds that we just sold here in 1920. So the bonds that we sold, the $265 million worth of bonds, will be updated in the construction fund during our revised budget coming in January. So as you can see here, total revenues overall for last year were approximately $282 million. A large increase due to the bonds that we sold for non-voter approved projects last year. And this year, the total 9 funds are $204 million, about $204,500,000. Again, the decrease due to the construction fund bonds, but that will be changed, like I said, with the revised budget. When you take a look at the 2019-2020 revenue, all funds, you can kind of see visually that about 73% of the revenues generated in all 9 funds are due to the general fund, which is our operating fund. We're in the business of educating kids. And you can kind of see how the funds are spread out. Again, this is our preliminary budget that you approved at our June 2019 meeting. Again, those will change as we do our revised budget coming up here at the January business meeting. When we take a look at the expenditures, 2019-2020 expenditures, you can kind of see then that the general fund we're taking a look at about an increase of about $280,000 for the 2018-19. Again, remember, along with the revenues that were transferred over into Fund 6 for those projects, the expenditures went along with them. So about $5 million worth of pay-as-you-go money, revenue and expenditures were being transferred to Fund 6. So that's why it looks like we hardly had an increase in expenditures, even though, remember, those approximately $5 million of expenditures are now in Fund 6. So it looks, at the general fund level, it looks like, you know, there wasn't much of an increase there. But again, keeping in mind that those funds were transferred over to Fund 6 for the construction projects for our facilities plan. As you can see, total expenses are dropping here, again, by about 6.3 million. A large part of that, again, is last year we had we refinanced our OPEB debt service. We refinanced our debt, our bonds for OPEB. And so we had an escrow, about a $14 million set aside. So when you look at the expenditures there, that included the paying off of the old bonds. So normally under that OPEB debt service, the 2.263 is normally what we would expense during a normal year. So that's why expenditures kind of decreased from last year to this year. So when you look at it visually, you can kind of see again that right now about 65% of the expenditures are general fund related. You can kind of see now that the construction fund, we're starting to do the facilities planning, so you know our expenses are increasing, and you can see then that that has an impact on the overall funds of the district. And again, about 11.2% of the overall expenses are related to construction. And again, these things will change with the revised budget. So looking at our pay 2020 levy information, again, this is the start of the budget planning for fiscal year 2020-2021, again, which starts July 1st of 2020. The end of this fiscal year will end June 30th. A school district tax levy is set by, again, state formula. There's some things that are just determined by the state. We have no control over them. By voter approval, we do have operating referendums, 2 questions that were passed by the stakeholders, and then, of course, building bonds, building referendum that was passed by the voters. And then also by you folks, discretionary levies that you can approve, such as long-term facilities maintenance pay-as-you-go, such as health and safety, safe schools, some of those different types of things that we do levy for as a district are discretionary and under your control. So when we take a look at how the money breaks down for 2019-2020, you can kind of see where that stands now. About 10% is set by the state, about 36% is set by the board, and you can see this is a big increase from last year. About 54% is approved by the voters, and this is, again, because of the debt service that is being paid off due to the passing of our building bond referendum. When you take a look at significant highlights for the pay 2020 levy, legislative change shifting dollars from referendum to local optional, and I'll show you an example of that later on in the presentation. You're going to see our LTFM pay-go basically is decreasing. We normally levied about $9 million total. We dropped that down to about $5.8 million to help offset the cost of our debt service and to hold true to our stakeholders' promise of how much their taxes were going to increase by the building bond referendum. We had an increase in debt service of about 8.2. Again, this is mortgage payments for our Phase 2 and Phase 3 of our facilities plans. Again, we decreased our OPEB debt service by $348,000. That's due to the bond refunding that we did. So our mortgage on those went down by, like I said, $350,000. And then we had a decrease in the general fund by about $1.7 million overall. And this primarily was due to the drop in the long-term facilities maintenance pay-as-you-go that we levied past compared to next year. So when you take a look at the general fund levy, broken down into the general fund, you can kind of see that the general fund is going down by about 1.7 million. You're going to see on the some of the significant types of things, and I'll point that out. Legislation moved, 2018 legislation transferred dollars from referendum voter approved to local optional non-voter approved sources. And so it was kind of a change of funding source by the legislators. Again, this has to do with the $424 that was levied by districts. Again, because we had over that $424 in operating referendum, it was just absorbed. So we're not getting any more aid or any more money. It's just being called something different other than operating referendum. One of the reasons, too, why the legislators wanted to do this, and also the $300 in board-controlled operating referendum for those districts who didn't have an operating referendum, they could do a board-controlled $300 per pupil unit. So between the 424 and the 300, there was 724 there. That's now all rolled into local optional revenue, and so that's rolled in for us. Our two questions are 630 per pupil unit and our 930. You're going to see they're going to subtract out the $724 to now lower the actual amount of the operating referendum. And again, what that does is it gives the districts more opportunities if they want to go out, because operating referendums are capped at about $2,000 per pupil unit. So this drops the actual cap down so that districts then can go out for additional dollars if need be. So in our case, you can kind of see some of the changes that happened in the long-term facilities maintenance. You can see we had a drop there. You can see the switches up above with the referendum versus the local optional. They just kind of switched pots. And that was, like I said, by legislation. So all in all, general fund, total general fund dollars go down by about 5.5%, or about 1.7 million. Moving on to community service and debt service, you can see that community ed went up about $135,000. Debt service, in orange, you can kind of see our new debt service that we put in place. The voter approved, and also the long-term facilities maintenance. You can see then that those amounts went up. Other amounts obviously went down. So the overall increase in debt service, as like I said, is about $8.2 million. When you look at OPEB, we dropped at about $350,000. We dropped about $350,000. So the overall increase from last year from this year to next year's final proposed levy is about $6.2 million, and majority of that has to do then with the actual debt service that we have on our buildings for that increase. So just wanted to show, and this is what I've been sending out. Some of the questions, I've had about 5 stakeholders of the district call and talk to me about taxes and what happened, and I've had about 3 that had questions about their tax increases from last year, or from this year to next year, and then I had about 3 that were wondering, why my statement shows a significant increase in the non-voter approved versus the voter approved. And so I mailed them out, or I email, and then we talk about it so they get to see it, and then I talk about legislatively kind of what happened and why that shift occurred. And then technically, it is voter approved. It's just because it's referendum and it legislatively changed. It's just been shifted to non-voter approved status. So, all right. So as we're taking a look at our commitment to the stakeholders of the district, if you look at no property value increases for a property owner, we basically said that on a $200,000 property, it would be about $5 a month or $60 per year. And the final proposed levy would equate to, in this case, about $58 per year. So the increase is due to the building referendum. proposed by the school district and the school board, you can kind of see that between a $100,000 home and a $450,000 home, those increases due to that were anywhere between 5.8 and 6.8%. And again, we did stay true to that in this final levy certification. And some of the calls I've gotten are concerned because they've had significant percentage increases in their taxes. Again, if we look at what happens with a 10% increase in property value on that same $200,000 house that we talked about, that $200,000 house would go up to $220,000. So now you can see that just on that 10% increase on that $200,000 house, $100 is due just to the increase in their property value, which again, we have no control over. That's a county assessed market value. And about $66 then is due to the building referendum. Now again, you got to remember, somebody asked me the question, well, why is that not 58? Well, now the house has gone up $20,000 in value, so that extra $8 is because of that $20,000. So one of the things I asked Ramsey County for was a slide that I find very interesting. So if you did happen to see the article in the Minneapolis Tribune this past weekend, if you look at all the Ramsey County school districts, they did have higher increases than any of the other surrounding metropolitan areas. And if you look at what happened in the assessed property values, you can see that not too many people got a decrease. So you had 2,201 people who remained the same. About 10,600 had a decrease between 0 and 10%, and the rest of everybody else had an increase in their property values. So you can see between 0 and 10%, that was almost $60,000 of the residential homes had that increase, and you can kind of see the number. 275 had 50% or more. So the nice thing about this, I asked them for this, and when I do push it out to the stakeholders of the district, when they call me, then I push it out, by email, and then I say, you look at it, let's talk about it the next day, and they understand. They know, puts it in perspective for them. So anyway, this was a nice slide. I reached out to their people, and they sent me this, which was nice. So when you take a look at what's happened, at least since I've been here, we've pretty much maintained a flat levy from year to year, and we've only raised it on accord to voter-approved types of things. So you can kind of see in 2015, 2016, we were flat. Then we had an increase because of the $930, so we increased from $41,227,000 to $47,731,000. And then after that approval, you can kind of see we remained flat for those 3 years. And now we've jumped up to $54,512,000 because of the voter-approved building referendum. So again, I think at this point, we stayed true to meeting the needs of the district, the wishes of the school board, and then also to the stakeholders of our district. So with that, I'll turn it over to any questions.
Okay, thanks, Randy.
Yep.
Nancy?
Randy, Minnesota does have kind of a unique program in that if your property taxes go up a certain percentage, you can apply and get some of that money back, right?
Yeah, so there's based upon your income, obviously, two things happen. There is some tax relief on property taxes figured into your property value and how much you're paying on taxes. So that is automatically calculated, by the county and assessed. So you're going to look at, you're going to get a market value credit, which comes on your tax statement. And I believe people with homes under $405,000, somewhere right around $400,000, will receive some kind of credit on their property taxes. And then you're right, Nancy, based upon their income, they can file for a property tax refund based upon how much they pay in property taxes versus how much they make, and the size of their household, et cetera. Yep. Yeah. Yeah.
Thank you, Randy. Just two quick questions. So when you talked about the very, very beginning with the expenditures and the revenues from our budget, and that they're coming back in January and we're going to be modified, do you anticipate that even though we're going to take action on approving the payable taxes for 20 at this meeting, will there be any effect on that decision after we rediscuss in January?
On property taxes?
Yeah.
No, none whatsoever.
And
So,
the-
yeah.
And the second thing that I wanted to ask is that when we passed the bond, we had that inflation factor in there. And so can you just kind of explain the difference between what we built into that model versus the inflation that people are seeing in the rise in the value of their home? Because this article had a lot of conversation in the community.
Yeah. So on our first question at 930, there's not an inflationary factor, but on our second question that was passed a couple of years ago by the stakeholders of the district, there was an inflationary factor that was built in. So in other words, every year that 630 goes up by the rate of inflation, which is determined by MDE in the state of Minnesota, so Minnesota Department of Education, the state of Minnesota. And right now, I think the increase for next year is like 1.7%. And so it's determined in advance. And so ultimately, that 1.7% to us is about $60,000 of additional revenue due to that $630 going up 1.7%.
So just to follow up to that, so if your property taxes go up like, say, $10,000 for that particular value, you would see it not necessarily just there, but then also the 1.7% or whatever in the school district portion.
So, yeah, so ultimately, when we build our levy, Teresa, we take that into consideration. So those dollars that increase in those operating referendum are already built in there. And so when we look at what we want to put forward, those things are already factored in there. So in that $54 million, we wanted to stay true to our taxpayers at that $60 amount. So ultimately, we lowered things, discretionary things in order to make that work.
If I could add just another comment to that, Teresa. Related to the increase in assessed taxable property value in homes, that is not necessarily going to be even across the board. So some neighborhoods' value may go up faster than others, and some may go down based on whatever the market says is deemed valuable in one neighborhood versus the other. And that is different from the overall rate of inflation. So when the state gives us a rate of inflation, and we apply that to, for example, our operating levy, which we built in the inflationary rate, it is different than the assessed value of somebody's home. Because somebody may live in a neighborhood that all of a sudden takes off and its value skyrockets in terms for different, it's the market. People suddenly want to live in that area. And so the county may suddenly deem that area marketable and your value goes up a lot more. And someone else, they may say, yeah, actually, your neighborhood's not very marketable anymore. Your value actually went down. And so that's actually not tied to the rate of inflation. And so I think sometimes taxpayers may get a little confused about those two issues, because where the county assesses your marketable taxable value of your home, it really is about market demand. It's less about the rate of inflation, whereas the rate of inflation is established statewide or countywide or whatever, and so that's a different factor. So just to clarify that, so I think what people are experiencing, particularly in Ramsey County, is a county that's gone around and reassessed the value of everybody's home, and some people, many, got increases assessed. Some got bigger increases than others, only because your home or your neighborhood was deemed more marketable than somebody else's. So your home may have gone up others more than somebody else's neighborhood may have as well. Just to clarify the difference in that.
And that's a good point. You have to remember that our school district is made up of 60% residential, 40% commercial. And so Ramsey County's assessed values on residential property averaged 9% last year, or for next year, I should say, this year. For next year, and the commercial properties went up 4%. So what ends up happening, that shift then also throws more burden on the residential property taxpayers than the commercial. And so that's happening because during the recession, commercial property continue to rise and residential property continue to decrease. And so now they're trying to, straighten that out. So that's what's happening here too, on the right, or difference too in the tax increase.
Okay, for public comment, Kim, do we have any public comment? And should I read this statement about?
Yes, you can. I don't have anybody registered, but I know Randy was going to just check one last time.
Yeah, if anybody would like to come forward. Okay. Thank you.
Okay, thanks, Randy. So next on the agenda, we have Jackie Hegel with the fiscal year 2019 audit.
So I'm going to get set up here.
Okay.
And I'd like to, we have a new face here, actually not so new to the district. I've been working with Jackie since I've been here in the district, and I think she was working with the district prior to my coming here. So she, again, was, congratulations, she was promoted to principal. So I know we're used to seeing Jim Eichten, we have for a long, long time, and Jackie actually was here last year with Jim. And so we're happy to have Jackie here and come and talk a little bit about our audit and moving forward. So Jackie with MMKR. So I'll turn it over to you, Jackie.
Well, thank you. As Randy mentioned, my name is Jackie Hegel. I'm a partner with MMKR, and I'll go through the audit results for the year ended June 30th, 2019. So our role as auditors is to issue an opinion on the financial statements of the district audit. Since your district does receive more than $750,000 in federal awards, we issue a separate opinion over that schedule of expenditures of federal awards, as well as we complete that separate single audit of those dollars. And then since your district does have the student activity accounts not under board control, we complete a separate audit of those accounts as well. So as part of our audit testing, we test the internal controls and the compliance over that financial statement audit with the federal single audit, with the Minnesota state laws and regulations, and also with the manual for activity fund accounting. For the audit results with the financial statement audit, we issued an unmodified or a clean opinion on the basic financial statements. So that's the opinion you're looking for. It's the top opinion you can receive. For the report on the internal controls and compliance over the financial statement audit, I had no internal control findings to report and no compliance findings to report. And for the Minnesota legal compliance audit, we did note there was one of the 25 disbursements tested that were not paid within that 35-day requirement period, which is required by state statutes. For the audit results related with the federal single audit, we noted that CFA, the schedule of expenditures of federal awards, is fairly stated in relation to the basic financial statements. We did have one comment to report related with the internal controls over compliance, and that relates with the special education cluster and controls over suspension and debarment. So districts, when they're spending federal funds, they are required to do a check to verify any vendors they're spending more than $25,000 with, to verify they're not suspended or debarred. So the district did complete the checks, but they're required to be completed prior to any money being spent. So just an area to improve on going forward. But as part of all of our audit testing in this area, within the compliance, we didn't have any compliance findings to report, just an internal control comment. For the audit results with the student activity audit, we issue an opinion noting that the reported cash balances, the receipts and disbursements are fairly presented. We do report an internal control comment, which is the same that you've received and seen in previous years, and that's just with the student activity accounts are reported on a cash basis of accounting. So we're noting that we are only auditing the recorded cash receipts of those activity accounts. For the compliance audit, I did have one comment to report with the activity purpose forms and just making sure that the forms include instructions on them for the disposal of any student activity balances going forward. One item I would like to comment with student activities, some of you might be aware of it. There have been some changes with some GASB, a new GASB standard has been implemented, or I should say issued, and it will be implemented in the district's FY20 audit. So all these student activity accounts going forward, starting in fiscal year 20, will be reported as part of the general fund. So going forward, you're not going to see that separate audit of the student activity accounts. That'll be part of your general fund activity. This is a slide I have on the follow-up on prior year findings. So as part of an audit, we are required to follow up on any findings the district had in the previous audit year to make sure they were followed up on and corrected in the current year. So as part of the June 30th, 2018 audit, there were a few comments. The first in the federal single audit area with special education cluster and internal controls over compliance with federal allowable cost requirements, and just making sure that time and effort documentation is being retained on file. And the other two related with the Minnesota legal compliance audit, the first with withholding affidavit, making sure that the district is obtaining this form prior to making final payment with the contractor. And then the second was with the contract performance and payment bonds and making sure that these are obtained for any construction services in excess of the state requirements. So for all these areas, we did do our follow-up testing as part of the 2019 audit, and we had no findings in these areas for the 2019 audit. So the district did a good job of having a corrective action and then following up on it and correcting it going forward. So I'll move in. The next several slides will be on some of the financial activity of the district. This first slide shows the statewide unrestricted operating fund balance as a percentage of the operating expenditures. It shows 10 years of history. For the 2018 year, the district's percentage was a 13.8%, and that's compared to a statewide average in 2018 of about 20%. And for the 2019 year, the district saw that increase up to about 17.2%. And at this time, there's no statewide information available. This next slide shows a summary of the general fund financial position for the past 10 years, showing the cash balance, the fund balance, and the expenditures. The general fund cash balance was about $29 million at year end. It's an increase of about $4.3 million from the prior year. And the total general fund balance was about $32.2 million. Saw an increase of about $6.8 million from the prior year compared to a budgeted increase of about $3.7 million. This next table summarizes the components of the general fund balance for the past 5 years. So it's split down by that non-spendable fund balance, the restricted, and then the assigned or unassigned dollars. So for the 2019 year, the general fund had that total fund balance of about $32.2 million. That was broken down by about $168,000 is in non-spendable fund balance, so that's tied up in prepaid and inventory items. The restricted fund balance at year end was about $12.6 million. Those dollars are restricted for about $9 million restricted for operating capital dollars, and then the district had about $1.5 million restricted for safe schools and another $1.5 million restricted for medical assistance dollars. And then that leaves the remaining $19.4 million in unassigned fund balance at year end. And that unassigned fund balance as a percentage of expenditures was about 13.1%. The next couple of slides I have show the general fund. This shows the general fund revenues, and then I'll go into the general fund expenditures. This shows the graph showing current year actual comparing to budget and also comparing to prior year. So the total general fund revenues are about $154 million for the year ended June 30th, 2019. It's about $2 million over the final budget. The main variances to budget, state sources were about $3.4 million over budget, and that's mainly in the special education aid and also enrollment coming in more than anticipated in the budget. And then that was offset by the property taxes were about $2 million under budget, and that relates with that long-term facility maintenance revenue being budgeted for in the general fund, but some of those projects being accounted for in the capital projects fund, so a portion of that revenue was recorded in the capital projects fund. The general fund total revenues were about $1.3 million higher than the previous year. State sources saw the largest increase, mainly due to the increase in the general education formula allowance and also an increase in state special education aid. And then that increase in the state sources was offset. Once again, property taxes saw a decrease because a portion of that levy was shifted over to the capital project fund. And then the other revenue saw a decrease this year, and that was due to one-time revenues received in the prior year related with E-rate revenue. Similar graph showing the general fund expenditures. So for the 2019 year, the general fund expenditures were about $148.4 million. That was about 1.1 million under the final budget. The majority of the budget variance was in that salary and employee benefit area. Total general fund expenditures were about 5.2 million more than the previous year. Salaries and benefits saw the largest increase at about 3.6 million, all due to contractual salary and benefit increases. And then purchase services saw an increase in the current year, and that's due to the accounting for the special education tuition billing. This next slide shows a couple of the other governmental funds, the other operating funds, the food service special revenue fund and the community service special revenue fund. The food service fund had a year-end fund balance of about 1.6 million, an increase of about 200,000 from the prior year, and that's compared to a budgeted decrease of about 200,000. So the ending fund balance in this fund of 1.6 million represented about 24% of the expenditures of the fund. And then the community service fund ended the year at just under 3.3 million, was a decrease of about 280,000 from the prior year, and that's compared to a budgeted decrease of about 380,000. And the ending fund balance in this fund represented about 31% of the current year expenditures. So in summary, just to summarize the results, we issued a clean opinion on the basic financial statements. Did have the one comment reported in the single audit of federal awards, and also the one comment in the Minnesota legal compliance area. As I noted in my presentation, the district did implement the recommendations from the prior year audit and followed up on any prior year findings. And also, as I noted in my presentation, the district had an improvement in their financial position for the 2019 year. And then the last comment I want to add is with that Certificate of Excellence in Financial Reporting. Some of you might remember from the previous year that the June 30, 2018 audit was the first year the district submitted their CAFR to the ASBO, which is the Association of School Business Officials, and they received their award for the first time in the current year with the 2018 CAFR. So the district will also be submitting the 2019 CAFR to the ASBO for the certificate going forward. So with that, I can answer any questions.
Okay, thanks, Jackie. Anybody? Caleb, do you have something?
Jackie, for that one disbursement that was not paid within 35 days, it sounds like something very minor, but was that just due to a processing error that it didn't get paid in time?
Yeah, I believe.
I can comment at that. Yeah, a lot of times what happens, people go home for the summer, and so they get the bill in June or July, and then it sits in their inbox or whatever, and so then when they come back for the start of school or whatever, all of a sudden we've got some bills that came in, that they're forwarding for payment.
Okay.
So.
Thank you.
And not to downplay it, but I would say that is our most common finding that you see in local governments and school district audits, the 35-day payment period.
Thank you, Jackie. I just want to give a hats off to Randy. You look at those numbers, and I cannot believe how your budget and your actual are so close with such a big volume of dollars. I mean, that's pretty impressive, and I thank you and your staff for all that work. I do have one question for you. With the shift of the student accounts, which has been, since I've been on the board, have been a little problematic, talk a little bit about what you're going to have to do how are we going to see that in a general fund? I mean, will that be its own fund in the general fund, or? And I can't imagine how that's going to be managed.
That came late to us from MDE, so actually we had been talking about it, but I think, Jackie, that kind of came forward like in May or
May and June.
June. It was kind of we had an inkling that it could possibly be coming, but so what's going to actually happen is the trust accounts, Fund 8 and Fund 9, some of those also are going to have to be rolled into the general fund, and the student activity accounts, which are, Fund 50, will have to be rolled in. And so MDE came out, so this is another instance where MDE is building the plane while they're flying it. So anyway, they have a procedure that it's a finance code that they're going to use with the school activity accounts. And so what we plan on doing is bringing them back into activities. And then those funds will be triggered by a finance code. I can't remember what the code number is, but But ultimately, we have a plan, and the buildings really won't see any difference, except for we'll have to get a little bit more internal controls in places with those folks. But they have not really seen anything different than what they actually have done, except for some different account code numbers. So. Oh, I have one more thing. I'd like to thank everybody, school board, and of course the cabinet and the buildings. Again, it takes a village, and I'd also like to thank my staff. Joe McCabe and obviously Kim does a great job working with me on the board packets, etc. And then Janet Dolman, our finance supervisor, and Travis Byrne, who's our accounting coordinator. Again, people have done a great job in helping us, get the certificate of excellence and just, moving everything forward. So with that, I'd like to say just thanks. Like I said, it takes a village.
Well, and I'd like to thank you too, because I don't think that school board finance has ever been any more clear than it is now. But joking aside, it just shows the value of the trust between the school board and the people that are actually doing the work, and between the voters and the school board to entrust us with this amount of fiscal responsibility, knowing that you know where the money's going and that it always ends up where it's supposed to be. So I also thank you a lot for that.
If I could add just one more comment, even going back to the comment we made about the truth in taxation hearing, that task of, we made a promise to our voters that the average homeowner with an average home value of $200,000 would see an impact of $5 a month or $60 per year. It's easy to say that, but the fact of the matter is the property value overall, the aggregate property value of the school district is actually a changing base, right? Because as property values are growing and shrinking, as we well saw, as Ramsey County in particular did a lot of changes this year, corporate property values are growing and shrinking, and it's a moving base. And so when the school district makes decisions about which bonds to sell when, we're trying to base on all these many factors. First of all, what's the aggregate property value of the district? And then what amount should we sell each year based on the declining debt that we have? When should we increase the debt to make it keep at that promise to our voters? It's a very, very complicated task. And I just hats off to Randy and to Ellers and our team that has worked with that. And I've been so impressed. I remember when those tax statements started coming out and people were concerned, I said, let's pull the numbers. We got to look closely at the data. Did we keep our promise? And to be perfectly honest, it's a super difficult thing to be that spot on with it. And we said the average homeowner would see an increase of $60 per year. And when we pulled the numbers, the average homeowner saw an increase of $58 per year. I was like, this is incredible budgeting and financing and sales of bonds. And I have spent a lot of time looking in the weeds with them at how the bond sales are going to be structured and organized. And it's a very complicated task. And that work has been incredible. And it fits with that process, in addition to the way we've been looking at our ability to not only know our own budget. I think many school districts everywhere, when you have so many different budget codes, different budget administrators across the school district, it's always a little bit of a moving target about where's your final end balance going to land, right? I mean, every time the checks clear at the end of the school year, there's always a cleanup process between the end of the fiscal year at the end of June and the beginning of the new school year, July 1, and then there's still checks that are clearing and there's payments that are still being made. And there's always sort of a prediction process, and then where do we actually land once all the checks clear from the checkbook, if you think of it that way. The accuracy with which our team has been predicting our outcomes at the end of the year has been astounding. And I got to just reiterate what Randy said. He and his team has been doing a fantastic job with that. And having been in other places, it's not easy to do. And there are a lot of moving targets and moving pieces and many different budget administrators controlling their own different accounts. And to keep a tab on all of that and be accurate in your predictions is pretty amazing. So hats off.
Okay, thanks, Christine. 2019. And Jackie, thank you for coming to present on this.
Thank you.
And thank you.
Okay, now we move on to the action items. So our first action item out of the business office is acknowledgement of contributions, and Ben Jarman is going to read that.
Thank you. Minnesota statute 123B.02 permits school boards to, quote, receive for the benefit of the district bequests, donations, or gifts for any proper purpose and apply the same to the purpose designated. In that behalf, the board may act as trustee of any trust created for the benefit of the district and for the benefit of pupils thereof. Therefore, the Director of Business Services recommends the following resolution. Be it resolved by the School Board of Independent School District Number 622 that the school board accept with appreciation the following contributions and permit their use as designated by the donors. Megan Kohler Kaiser in the amount of $500 for Cowern negative meal balances. Town and Country Office Cleaning, $507 to the North High Student Council. Daniel Engstrom, $432.49 to North High Nordic Ski. Fusion Parent Booster Organization, $2,000 for the North High Fusion drumline equipment. Ronald Erickson, $20 for Meals on Wheels. Dolores Kojowski, $30 Meals on Wheels. Eva Trumbull, $10 Meals on Wheels. Mary Burdick, $50 Meals on Wheels. Gail Spanbauer, $50 Meals on Wheels. Doug Andrus, Andrus Built LLC, $100 for Meals on Wheels. Carol Lynn, $20 for Meals on Wheels. Pam Woodward, $20 for Meals on Wheels. Russell and Lynn Howe, $50 for Meals on Wheels. Duke and Amy Coburn, $100 for Meals on Wheels. Betty Motes, $100 for Meals on Wheels. Mary Lindman, $200 for Meals on Wheels. Lori Carnes, $50 for Meals on Wheels. Mary Jones, $25 for Meals on Wheels. Kurt and Joan Reeves, $20 for Meals on Wheels. Barb Rube, $250 for Meals on Wheels. Len and Mary Jo Hassel, $50 Meals on Wheels. Hans and Becky Navy, $50 Meals on Wheels. Bruce Fisher, $20 for Metro Meals on Wheels. And finally, Beth Pittman, Target gift card for Oakdale Elementary holiday help. That brings the total fiscal year 2019-2020 monetary contributions to $69,447.73.
Okay, we need a motion and a second for approval. Okay, moved by Navy, second by Anderson. All in favor say aye. Aye. And all opposed say nay. So thank you, Ben, and thank you to all those donors. Next on the agenda, we have approval of the 2019 payable 2020 tax levy that Randy just went over with us. Let me find the resolution. Okay, be resolved by the School Board of Independent School District Number 622 that the 2019 payable 2020 property tax levy is adopted in the total amount of $54,512,785.63, and further that the school board clerk is authorized to sign the document used to certify the property tax levy to the county auditors and the Minnesota Department of Education. So I need a motion and a second for that. Okay, moved by Hunt.
Second.
Second by Livingston. All in favor say aye. Aye. And all opposed say nay. Okay. Next on the agenda, we have the audit report that we just heard about from Jackie. So be it resolved by the School Board of Independent School District Number 622 that the audit reports for the fiscal year ending in June 20th, 2019, presented by Mallory Montague, Karnowski, Radosevich, and Company PA be accepted as presented. Okay, moved by Ogier. Second by Jarman. All in favor say aye. Aye. And all opposed say nay. Okay, that motion also carries. Thank you. Next on the agenda, we have Assistant Superintendent Sales Adams with a course name change.
Good evening, Chair Yenner, members of the board, Superintendent Tuccio Osorio and Cabinet. I am pleased to welcome Suzanne Johnson, our secondary coordinator, to the podium. Tonight, Suzanne will bring forth a recommendation for a high school course name change for the fall of 2020.
All right, good evening, Board Chair, board members, Superintendent Tuccio Osorio, Cabinet. As Assistant Superintendent Sales Adams stated, I am Suzanne Johnson, the Secondary Career Pathways Curriculum and Staff Development Coordinator. Wow, that's a long one. All right. And joining me tonight, I have three teachers joining me: Eric Tweeden from Tartan, Troy Morgan, and Pam Letterman from North High School in support of our course name change proposal. Tonight we are proposing a course name change from Chem Essentials A and B, which is a 2-credit, 2-trimester course, to Introductory Chemistry, a 3-credit, 3-trimester course. This is a year-long course for both high schools and will be offered to 11th grade students. This change increases the rigor of the course while deepening the standards at an appropriate level. Introductory Chemistry helps fulfill our district's 9-credit science graduation requirement by addressing grade level standards more deeply while supplying the necessary scaffolds and support for student success. In offering a year-long course, students are more likely to have the same teacher for all 3 trimesters, which allows them to build a deeper relationship and thus form more social emotional support within the classroom. This course also allows for more learning with applications to the real world, including how chemistry is relevant to potential career paths. 622 Advisory Committee recommended this course for approval with a vote of 12 of yes and 1 yes with reservation. That's it.
All right, thank you. Any questions or comments? Teresa?
Well, as your board representative to this group, I just want to state that when you have teachers that bring this vetted process forward, I feel it'd be discredit to them and all the hard work that they've done to not adopt and support their work. One of the things that I do want to say is that we have heard previously from the students in advisory that the year of chemistry can be a challenge. And so this, I think would be really advantageous for you to hear that there are multiple options of chemistry, of which I'm not going to tell you what they are, but they are designed, and I hope one of those teachers or Suzanne will jump in if I mess this up, but they're designed to allow the student to get the course that's right for them to be successful. They're all nodding, so I think I've gotten it so far. But and the biggest takeaway that I took from the meeting we had last week was that this allows teachers to teach to the depth of all the standards that they have not been able to meet when they only offer it in 2 tries.
That's correct.
So, and of course it's a win-win if they get that same teacher for the full year. The big consequences, they would lose an elective option.
So just a quick question. How are the different opportunities for course selection presented to the students when they're in the process of deciding what their course selection is going to be?
Sure. In the science course, prior to the next school year, the teachers, their present teachers actually give recommendations based on their career choices, based on their performance in their particular, that specific class in which they're currently enrolled, as well as just their overall interest in the course itself.
Thank you.
Do they give those recommendations to their mothers?
Well,
okay.
now.
Okay, can I just ask what the reservation was with the votes?
Sure. The reservation was to make sure that we were actually adding rigor and depth to the course and not just stretching it out to go through a full year.
Okay, any other questions or comments? Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
So I'm going to read that resolution. Be it resolved by the School Board of Independent School District 622. Be it resolved that the School Board of Independent School District 622 adopt the course name change beginning fall 2020 for Chemistry Essentials AB as the current name, and the proposed name is Introductory Chemistry ABC. So I need a motion and a second.
So moved.
Moved by Auger.
Second.
Second by Livingston. All in favor say aye. Aye. And all opposed say nay. Okay, that's approved, and thank you to you guys for coming tonight. Okay, next on the agenda we have Superintendent Christine Tucci-Osorio with policy revisions. And this, I think, is our final.
Yes, absolutely. This list of policy revisions proposed for you was first presented to you at the November 12th work study session, followed by a formal reading at the November 19th business meeting. And the suggested revisions from that business meeting are indicated on your policy sheet and summary sheet. And so tonight is our second formal reading, and we will be gathering your feedback and ideally looking for your approval for the proposed revisions. What I'm going to do is just read through the policy title and number, and I'll just give you a brief overview of what the proposed change is from the original policy that we had. And as a reminder to people watching, policies generally, we revise our policies every year. Typically we do it once a year, but we do get recommendations from MSBA, the Minnesota School Boards Association, to go back over some policies, typically whenever there's a change in state statute or some legislative reason where they want us to take a look at our policies and they have some recommendations. The Minnesota School Boards Association actually has a team of attorneys that look at policies, and they have a set of model policies that they send out to school districts to use as examples. And anytime they make a change to one of their model policies, they send them out to school districts to look at. And then we take a look at the model they sent us and decide if we want to adopt the changes they recommend or if we're going to do something different. And so sometimes, and many times, we do adopt what they recommend, but there are times, once we take a look at that we decide that we don't want to actually adopt exactly what they're recommending because we have some different reasons at the local level that we don't want to do so. So I'm going to read for you the list of proposed changes, and again, this is our second formal reading, our third time discussing these. So I'll go right through these. The first one is policy number 414, mandated reporting of child neglect or physical sexual abuse. This is again an MSBA model policy. There's been a statutory change that adds 2 crimes under the definition of sexual abuse and a legal reference revision. The second one, revision of 516, student medication, and MSBA model policy. There's been a statutory change that adds student possession of use of sunscreen under that statute, which is that legal reference addition. Revision of policy 534, unpaid meal charges. Ours contains 622 language, but we're also adding 2019 Minnesota Attorney General opinion, which includes language about not denying students the opportunity to participate in graduation ceremonies due to unpaid meal charges. We've always had that practice in place that we don't deny people's participation in graduation. However, we're putting it officially into a board policy with this recommendation. Revision of policy 601, school district curriculum and instructional goals. We've got a legal reference addition and statutory change adding dyslexia screening, which is a big part of the last legislative session. And then we've additional word guardian where it says parent. We've also included guardian. We know that some people live with a guardian that's not necessarily their parent. Revision of 603, curriculum development, adds language regarding that dyslexia screening, which was added into state statute this past year. And again, addition of the term guardian in addition to just parent. Revision of 613, graduation requirements. The statutory change revision that includes graduation assessment requirements of the graduation credit requirements. Legal references have been revised and some just grammatical revisions as well. Revision of policy 515, testing accommodations, modifications, and exemptions for IEPs, section 504 plans and LEP students. This is again an MSBA model policy. and an updated URL link for the procedures manual for the Minnesota assessments. Revision of policy 616, school district accountability. This contains 622 language, also updated advisory committee provisions, a little bit of grammatical changes, and the revisions to the school district goals sections as it relates to advisory. Revisions to the task of comprehensive continuous improvement to school achievement section as it also relates to our advisory. Revision of policy 620, credit for learning, contains 622 language and also a statutory change that deletes North Central Association of Colleges and Schools for eligible institution definition. Revision of annual audit, number 703. This is an MSBA model policy. It also updates the Minnesota Legal Compliance Audit Guide and another grammatical change. Revision of policy 721, uniform grant guidelines, another MSBA model policy. It changes federal, there's a federal change increase to the threshold levels under procurement methods. Number policy 723, post-issuance debt compliance, another MSBA model policy. And this offers the issuers of bonds and other debt-related instruments requires the how-tos of what organizations will do in complying with the post-issuance of debt. The proposed revision is due to the Securities and Exchange Commission being responsible for enforcing continuing disclosure and the requirements of what procedures need to be followed in order for governmental entities to be compliant. Revision of policy 802, disposition of obsolete equipment and materials. This is an MSBA model policy as well. This includes a statutory change which expands potential recipients of surplus school computers and adds the option to sell or give surplus school computers to qualifying students. And that completes my list of proposed revisions to policies for this year. And with that, I'm going to recommend the board approve the 13 policies presented for revision this evening.
Okay, thanks, Christine. Any questions or comments? Teresa?
Just the policy 616, the school district system accountability. I really love the modifications. I just actually wanted to speak to the process of how we have the discussion and then the 2 public hearings, because this policy that we're currently, the current version is actually an adoption from going through that process a few times. And so I think it just really speaks to how effective that process is of hearing and really support the changes. It reads easier, it reflects more what that advisory group does. So I really support these changes.
Okay, great. Thanks, Teresa. Anything else? Okay, I'm going to read the motion. Policy revisions. Be resolved by the School Board of Independent School District 622 hereby revises the following policies. 414, mandated reporting of child neglect or physical or sexual abuse. 516, student medication. 534, unpaid meal charges. 601, school district curriculum and instruction goals. 603, curriculum development. 613, graduation requirements. 615, testing accommodations, modifications, and exemptions for IEPs, Section 504 plans, and LEP students. 616, school district system accountability. 620, credit for learning. 703, annual audit. 721, uniform grant guidelines. 723, post-issuance debt compliance. 802, disposition of obsolete equipment and materials. I need a motion and a second for approval. Okay, moved by Navy. Second by Jarman. All in favor say aye. Aye. And all opposed say nay. So that motion passes. And okay, that's it for our action items. Next we have board communication. Caleb, do you want to start us off?
I just want to wish everybody a safe and a happy holiday.
Great. Thanks, Caleb.
I had an opportunity this last weekend to attend the graduation ceremonies at University of Wisconsin, River Falls. And while I was sitting there in the audience with about 3,000 other parents and relatives and assorted friends and everything else, it occurred to me that, Randy oftentimes says that it takes a village. And while I was sitting there, I was reflecting on all those North High and Tartan graduation ceremonies that we've attended, and then thinking ahead 4 years later, after all that work, all the prep work that our teachers and staff have done to get those kids ready for college, and then thinking about it 4 years later, all of those people that have been affected by the work that the students did in class and outside of class to get ready for college, it really kind of leaves you with a stirring feeling. And for me, especially around the holiday season, when you're thinking already about friends and family and all that closeness. So it was kind of a unique experience, and it kind of changed my lens a little bit on how we do our work and why we do our work.
Okay, I just wanted to thank all the students who are here tonight and just let you know that you're welcome anytime.
Not just when you have an
It's always this interesting. Okay, and then we have our future board meetings, our January 14th, 2020 special meeting. That's 4:30 p.m. in the boardroom. Our January 14th, 2020 work study session is 4:45 p.m. or immediately following the adjournment of the January 14th, 2020 special meeting in room 202. And January 21st, 2020 business meeting at 6 p.m. in the boardroom. So if there are no further questions or comments, then we will adjourn the meeting. Can I get a motion in a second? Moved by Anderson. Second by Hunt. All in favor say aye. Aye. And all opposed say nay. Okay, meeting is adjourned.